Now, one of the things that I created was I'm a game developer, so I created a 6-animal model to look at these roles and start saying, well, okay, can I conceptualize these roles, conceptualize these relationships in the way that they might work in groups? Okay, so I looked at having a bear as my group leader. Now that is a high achiever in this situation, and they want the project to succeed, right? So they're kind of, the group leader, the person who has that vision, that potentially designed the original design, and everybody's grouping around them to get it done. I have a wolf, which is my group manager, which is a pack animal. The reason I and the reason I separate leadership and management is because the leader has that vision and drives everything forward. The wolf, the manager, makes sure everybody's on board. They make sure everyone else is communicating. They make sure that people feel involved in the group. I have an owl who is a process person. They make sure that, when you're at meetings, things are done in the order, and that they've covered all the things that need to be covered in the meeting, and they say things like, I'm sorry, we need to move on, because we've got these things on the agenda, right? Because if you get stuck on a point, it's the owl's job to look and say, well, we've got stuck, we need to end this discussion and move to the next one because we've got things to do, right? So they're process, they're wanting to make sure all the things get ticked off, right? I have a puppy and a cat. My puppy is my enthusiast, right? They are happy about every idea, and they support every idea, and they want everything to be great, right? And puppies are wonderful to have in a group, and it's great to have puppies in the group, because you're never alone. If there's a puppy in the group, you have an idea, the puppy supports you. And in fact, I make that a specific role in my groups, that there is somebody who will support any other person's idea. No matter how crazy it might seem, that person will say, oh, okay, that's cool, we could add this to it. Or, hey, how about we do that and this? And, that sounds great, how about we add this to it, right? So their job is not to point out faults with ideas. Their job is to support them. The cat has the additional role in the group of looking at risk. They're looking at things that could go wrong, in the idea that if they can identify things that could go wrong, they can help the project succeed. Right? Now this is going to be quite hard to understand, that by being negative you can help something succeed. The idea here is the cat's identifying things that could go wrong so you can remove those barriers and then succeed. Because if you don't look for those things, sometimes you'll just stumble and fall, right? So the cat's job is not just to be critical, it's to look for things that could hurt the project and identify those. And then, often the puppy will go, oh yeah, no, I can see that. And then, I could do this, right? So, for example, my wife is a cat and I'm a puppy. And so, I'll do the whole thing like, oh, if I take this bus to the airport, I can then take that flight and I'll get to that location on time. And she'll go, what if there are roadworks? And I go, oh, yeah, okay, well, what I can do is I can take the earlier bus and then I can work at the airport and that'll be great, right? So she didn't want me not to go. She wanted me to succeed. She wanted me to get to the airport. It's just, she identified that there could be problems and that bus trip was a bit risky, right? So having those two allows you to have different perspectives in your group. And the last one I have is my rabbit, who's my facilitator. Their job is to make sure everybody's got what they need, okay? And so, they set up meetings, they call meetings, those sort of things. So the idea is that these are ways to keep these different roles in your head, and try and give them an avatar means that I can have a separation between the role and me as a person, right? So in a particular group, I might need to play the role of a bear, even if I feel like a puppy, right? Because that group needs someone to take leadership, right? Or, someone needs to take management of the process. So even though I'm not a natural owl, sometimes someone might need to take that role, okay? Because that's what the group needs, not what I as an individual are best at. Now, so I break these down into actually the hexagonal model of associating with those self-determination theory / McClellan's 3 needs theory, and say that the bear is an achiever with a secondary on power, right? So they want to achieve things, but they still want to be in control of some of the process. The wolf, the pack animal, is wanting to have affiliation, so they're interested in everybody participating, and they have a secondary of control, right? So they want everyone to be together, and they then see themselves in control of that process. The cat and the owl are both power-focused individuals. Cat is around control of risk, right? Because they identify things that could happen, and they're controlling that risk. The owl is around controlling the process. They want to make sure everything gets done, right? So these are both control first. The cat, control plus achievement. The owl, control plus affiliation, right? So these were an idea of how do you divide up these roles, and looking at what the psychology says around the way people behave. And the puppy and the rabbit, the puppy affiliation, we're all together, and I want the project to succeed, right? And the rabbit is I want the project to succeed, and I want everybody to have what they need to get that project to succeed, right? So that's why I've designed each of these roles to have a kind of psychological basis for them, and a role that they can play in the group. Now, often this works great for between like 4 and 8 people, because 6, of course, there are 6 roles. But if you have 4 people, you can multi-class. But you have to be careful who you multi-class, right? I don't allow you to multi-class the bear and the wolf, because you can't both lead and manage. It just doesn't work. You can't be both the puppy and the cat. You can't both be enthusiastic and also critical at the same time. It's very difficult to do both of those successfully. However, you can be the owl and the rabbit. That is possible, right? But other combinations, perfectly reasonable. The owl cat works quite well. Of course, the puppy dog works quite well. The bear rabbit can also work quite well. But some of the other roles, you can be an owl puppy. Those sort of things work. A bear puppy can also work, right? So the thing is that you're looking for ways to combine these roles and do those in a smaller group. Okay. Now, this concept of saying, well, what role am I playing in this group for this particular task? So what we've done in large groups and for longer periods is we had people allocated these roles, and then they could change up the roles halfway through the project to try a different style of communication, right? To be part of the group in a different way. If you are in your groups and you are working, and you think, I'm not sure I'm gaining much from this particular role in this group, then yes, start saying, well, maybe I can change roles. Maybe I can take a different role.